Hello there friends and welcome. For today's Warhammer Rogue Trader guide we have our return to Argenta, the Sister of Battle. And this time we'll finally be going with a bolter burst focused build. For those tasty mass destruction, area of effect burst hits that can eliminate entire enemy packs at once, with amazing single target damage potential as well to easily melt and destroy any boss, all on unfair mode of course, in just one burst. As a matter of fact, your damage gets so absurdly high that even the initial burst shot will be enough to one-shot enemies with even higher than 1000 or 2000 damage per single shot, and you can even snipe with your bolter weapons for truly maximum ranged potential, with a flamer on the side to roast enemies whenever you feel like it. So without further ado, let us get into our Argenta Burst Goddess build. Argenta comes at level 4, and for her first soldier talent, camaraderie is still the way to go. This is one of the easiest ways of achieving enormous bonuses to damage as percentage modifiers even early. Later it can go up to 500% even, and it works for everything: burst, area of effect, single snipes, anything goes. Also, in many battles you can easily have your allies start around her just fine, so long as there's no one in front of her for her burst and flamer hits. For her stats, go with ballistic skills first. It can really help early on for a more true hit and critical chance, especially on unfair mode. For the second soldier talent, there's two ways this can go depending on if you want her to be more of a flamer character early or a burst weapon user. For burst, muzzle velocity, so that the first hit of each burst will deal additional damage equal to the weapon's rate of fire, which can be around 8+ at this point. For flamers, however, go with point blank instead to increase the damage of area attacks. I imagine most people wanna go with burst, so I'll be picking muzzle velocity, but you can always pick whatever you want and respec her at will to change between the two modes. Later you can specialize in both. But if you were to ask me for Act 1 on unfair, the long laser sniper rifle is still the easiest way of handling it. You can just go burst from the second act onwards. But I'll provide you with all the burst options with this build, including flamer ones. Then more ballistic skill, and for our first soldier power, well, you also have two options here. Rapid fire for burst to double your rate of fire, which results in way more damage, or concentrated fire for flamer area attacks, for a nice amount of dodge reduction and extra damage. Now, concentrated fire currently does work with burst damage as well, but I've heard it's a bug and eventually they'll remove it, I suppose. So just keep that in mind. Once you max ballistic skill, it's time to increase agility, as it does have synergy with some soldier abilities. As far as perception, while it can reduce enemy dodge, honestly it's super easy to increase it through officer ally buffs. If you don't have any officer party member, then go with perception instead. I do have lots of them, so agility is the way to go. For your first generic talent, if you want more flamer power early, flame weapon expert, to reduce the cost of your flame weapon attacks by -1 AP, so that the normal hit only costs 0, and the area of effect hit 1 AP only. Otherwise, for more burst power, go with doing my part. So long as no one else in your party is a soldier, the first use of any soldier ability will cost -1 AP, which is perfect because by default, burst weapons cost, well, 2 AP for burst. On extra turns provided by officers, you'll have just that, 2 points. With doing my part, the first use of the rapid fire we just picked to double our rate of fire will cost 0, so you can combine it with a burst attack in the same turn. And usually your first attack is what matters the most in this game. It's all about the Alpha Strike. For level 8, what you want is Fired Up. Whenever you deal damage, your critical damage will be increased by +1% and it stacks. The best part about Fired Up is the amazing synergy it has with burst attacks, because all of your individual burst hits will count as far as damage to increase your power through Fired Up. And well, one burst can result in loads and loads and loads of extra damage as you hit multiple enemies. Multiple times as well. For Argenta skills, she's pretty much meant to be your main demolitions expert, which helps with trap disarming. So I'll be going with that. For the first upgrade to Firearm Mastery, one of the best heroic actions. The second one, of course, to increase your rate of fire by 30% until the end of combat, if you want to go with burst weapons, or the last one, for more Flamer area of effect damage power. For level 10, what we want is Unpredictable to increase your critical range. But you might also go for Alacrity already to increase your agility bonus for each shot fired, which can add up quite nicely with burst. Then more agility, and for the second power, well, either concentrated fire or rapid fire. You can of course pick both. But if you only want to specialize in one type of attack, go with dash for extra mobility. Otherwise, it's gonna take a while before you can pick this only during level 36+. Dash doesn't cost any AP and lets you move 3 cells, even past enemies. I'll just go for concentrated fire for both Flamer and burst weapon power. After all, aren't the Sisters of Battle all about Flamer and bolter weapons? Once you max Demolition, you might as well increase Awareness, which helps with detecting traps. Demolition is for disarming them. Plus, of course, plenty of secret items hidden all over the maps. If you don't have anyone in your party that can cover Athletics, pick it instead, as Cassia can easily handle Awareness. For our next stat upgrade, it's very important that you increase Strength by +5, because we'll soon be entering the second act, which means heavy weapons, especially heavy bolters, and they do have strength requirements. For another generic talent, Ready to Serve is the way to go so that Argenta's resolve will be increased when she's buffed by allies. The higher your resolve, the more momentum and the more heroic action spammage. For the next level, I recommend you go with Unfaltering Fire, so rapid fire will no longer reduce your damage by -25%, and starting from this point you'll be getting loads of extra damage sources. But if you don't care for it because you'll be dealing loads of damage anyways, you might as well go for Alacrity to increase your agility. Then it's time for a Bolt Weapon Expert to add some armor bypassing to our bolter weapons, because we'll soon be getting the amazing Heavy Bolter. And speaking about that, this is also when you want to get Heavy Weapon Proficiency, as the Heavy Bolter has high strength requirement. With this talent and the strength increase we just got before, you'll be able to equip it just fine, even at the beginning of the second act. Then more awareness, and for the final upgrade to Firearm Mastery, well, the last one if you want more Flamer damage, or the first one if you don't care about Flamers, so you won't spend all of your movement when attacking with burst or single shots. And that's it for Soldier progression. As for our second archetype, we'll be going with Arc Militant this time. It's one of the most busted ones, amazing for heavy weapons and burst damage. For your level 17 power, go with Wildfire first, as it can help you make multiple burst attacks per turn, and even provide you more versatility if the attack is of the same type, so double burst for example. Plus, it's very easy to reduce its cost the more versatility stacks you have, for more weapon skill, critical chance, to hit chance, and damage. For your first Arc Militant talent, if you wanna go with the Heavy Bolter, then you kinda need Heavy Gunner, which reduces the cost of heavy weapon attacks by -1. By default, the Heavy Bolters all cost 3 action points for their burst attacks. With this, it's only a 2-point cost. Very important because on extra turns provided by your officer allies, through the Bring It Down ability, you'll only have 2 action points. Level 20 means +1 AP, amazing because we really need that with our build, and a return to ballistic skill increases. Then at long last we can pick the Always Ready talent so that you already start combat with some stacks of versatility for free, followed by more ballistic skill and the Reckless Rush power. I often prefer this first than Wildfire, because it can not only increase your movement and also double your versatility stacks. It's just that for this build, because we had to pick Heavy Gunner first instead of Always Ready, well, it's only now that you'll start combat with 3 versatility stacks, which is why I'm picking Reckless Rush. For another generic talent, it's time to focus into the heavy weapon boosting ones. First with Overpower, for loads of extra critical hit chance and critical damage with heavy burst weapons. Then for level 23, more demolition and discipline, so that whenever you get extra turns from officer allies, you'll also get another stack of versatility. All further doubled through Always Ready combined with Reckless Rush, of course, before you even have to kill any enemy or make any attack. Once you max ballistic skill, it is time for more agility, or perception if you prefer. Then the second heavy weapon talent, Breaking Point, for some nice extra damage, but most importantly, minor enemy deflection by passing. For level 25, well, you can already pick All Out, so your Reckless Rush will cost 0 action points, but through the Ready to Serve talent, it's also gonna be the case. Otherwise, go for critical versatility for even higher critical damage, depending on how many stacks of versatility you have. Then more demolition, and more agility. Any upgrade to steady superiority, because honestly you'll just be using your soldier heroic action, but you might as well pick the last one, which lets you combine it with the soldier one on different turns. More demolition, and for more arc militant talents, well, you have 3 options: All Out to reduce the cost of Reckless Rush, Flash Fire for the same but to Wildfire, otherwise Adaptability to highly increase your critical chance to the max. For level 29 and your stat increase, you have 2 different options: keep increasing perception or go for strength, and the reason is the improved heavy bolter weapon you can get during Act 4 requires you to increase your strength by +5 3 extra times. However, during Act 4 you can also find Argenta's special heavy armor, which increases your strength by +15. The only difference is it's around the middle part of Act 4, so if you're fine with waiting until then, ignore strength and just go for more perception. And of course you can always respec her once you find the power armor and go with strength now. For another normal talent, Litany of Hatred, so your War Hymn ability, which costs nothing, will not only increase momentum but also boost the power of your single shots, great for combining with your soldier heroic action. It is based on willpower bonus, but at this point in the game it's super easy to increase it by 100+ through Cassius' Reveal the Light power. For the next Arc Militant ability, it honestly doesn't matter, cause Wildfire and Reckless Rush are the best ones. The approach ones, you don't want them because you'd rather have the normal bonuses from versatility, for more damage and weapon skill. You might as well pick Kick because it is an extra attack, and you can kick enemies away from cover if needed. But there's also Devastating Attack if you prefer. It's just that the effect isn't really that good, knocking the enemies down, I mean they'll be dead anyways, once you burst them into submission. For 31, either Flash Fire or All Out. I prefer All Out, because by the time you increase your versatility stacks, Wildfire will cost less anyways. Then more Perception, and more Awareness, followed by Accustomed to Glory for more damage whenever your party uses heroic actions. Then Dual Perception increases, including at the next level. And for the last generic Arc Militant talent, well, you can pick Solid Projectile Weapon Expert even earlier if you wanna use the Stubber weapon because it is solid as opposed to bolters. Otherwise, it's time to start increasing your stats through talents, first with a +5 to ballistic skill. The last upgrade to steady superiority doesn't matter at all. Pick whatever you want. And that's it for Arc Militant progression. Now let's cover Exemplar progression, and this is where a lot of the super powerful damage bonuses are. As always, starting first with Extermination for +1 flat damage for every attack you make. Amazing when combined with your soldier heroic action, because you can then fire around 12 attacks with no cost at all to increase the damage of your burst afterwards. We can pick more soldier talents now, and there are still some powerful ones. Point Blank, for example, if you wanna use flamers, and also Integrity for higher ballistic skill. Then back to Demolition increases, and then Flash Fire. After that, more ballistic skill increases, followed by a generic talent, and you might as well increase agility now. Something I didn't pick was It Will Not Die, because Argenta is kinda starved for feats and abilities, but you can pick it if you want. It's just that usually you'll be destroying enemies in one turn with the proper party anyways. But ideally you'd pick this way earlier, during soldier progression. Anyways, I just go for more agility, followed by dash or concentrated fire or rapid fire depending on what you didn't pick before. Then more demolition, and for the second exemplar talent, as always, Cataclysm to increase your damage whenever you hit a new enemy, which is always with this build. Followed by Exploit Weakness. It can increase your damage, but slightly only, which is why I delayed this for now. Then more Ballistic Skill, and for a Soldier talent, well, you might as well pick Point Blank if you didn't pick it before, just for Flamer fun, because it fits Argenta, or anything else you want. Then Devastating Attack, or Kick. Once you max Ballistic Skills, even more Agility. Anything else you want now for Arc Militant? Might as well pick Broad Expertise, it's just that the bonus is rather minor for Argenta, because she doesn't have that high weapon skill and it's based on that. Then I'll honestly just go for It Will Not Die, because the other ones don't matter at all for this build. But I guess there's always Stronger Together if you want, or No Heresy, quite fitting for her, it's just that the effects aren't really that good. Once you max Demolition, once again more Awareness, followed by, well, either Degraded Defense or Deadly Aim. Both will increase your damage, but at this point, you're already bursting for thousands worth of damage. And that's it for level 45 Exemplar progression. Now let's do a quick section on how to play as our Burst Queen Argenta. As always, it helps to buff her first with an officer ally with Voice of Command and Air of Authority, amazing for Unfair, for any ranged character, no matter if Burst, Sniper, Flamer, doesn't matter. As far as when Argenta's turn herself comes, ideally you want her and party members in a cross formation like this, with the spot in front of her free from allies, because you don't want them being caught in your Burst or Flamer attacks. This way her first attacks will get massive bonuses from her Camaraderie talent. After that you wanna activate Reckless Rush, which will cost 0 AP, to increase your versatility stacks. Then if bursting, Rapid Fire, otherwise Concentrated Fire for Flamers, but it does work for Burst at the moment as well. And they'll also cost 0 AP because of your Ready to Serve talent. Unless you have other soldiers on the party, of course. After that, well, it is all about bursting enemies. The more you can catch on the same burst, the better. Because of our Heavy Gunner feat, it's only gonna cost 2 AP even for the Heavy Bolter weapon. Perfect for extra turns. So let's burst these poor enemies down. Chances are you'll already kill loads of them, which of course means high momentum. Once you reach high momentum, you always want to activate Firearm Mastery, not only to increase the rate of fire of your burst weapons, but to start sniping the remaining targets down, because you'll get loads of free attacks through it as single target hits. So we might as well start doing that. Which of course will mean more and more momentum generated. Ideally you wanna focus on the weaker enemies first, because well, chances are they'll be one shot from this. If you're going with the Blast Bolter items, you'll even have a 100% chance of hitting the enemies. Kind of forgot to equip it for this guide. But anyways, you have lots of attacks remaining, and you're already at high momentum again. But you might as well make use of all of your attacks. Chances are you can even activate Wildfire to get more bursts, because it will make it cost 0 only. So you might as well do that. And we killed even more enemies. If you aren't at high momentum, for some reason, you can also turn Furious Recital on, her ability that increases momentum. Because we hit such an outstanding amount of enemies already, look at that. It increased our momentum by 92, which can even go higher later. So it's very easy to stack heroic actions with her. Once you fully deplete all of your actions, you'll pass. And of course your officers will then get free turns, which they can use to cast Inspire on you for loads of more flat damage bonuses. Other buffs like Take Aim, which helps with burst to ignore cover and enemy dodge, and most importantly Finest Hours, so you get a full extra turn with extra damage and loads of extra attacks at the same time, so the cycle will repeat itself. Now let us cover gear for our Burst Argenta, starting with Act 1 choices. For the helmet, and this is for all the chapters, the Face of the Sovereign is as always the best for your main DPS character. After all, +1 resolve per kill means you get loads and loads of it, which means more momentum and more heroic actions, always on every battle. For armor, just the Sin Skin, for some extra dodge, as Argenta's agility will be high enough for that. For talismans, the Hypnotizing Pendant from the Silver Demon battle to slow enemies hit with your single shot attacks. I also like the Metronome to generate more stats to your character, but it kinda requires you not to move. Easy depending on how many officers you have providing you with extra turns. The Braces of Stability, so that you get some minor damage bonuses when using your run and gun ability, for more attacks of course. For cloaks you might as well go with the Camouflage Robe, to reduce the enemy's dodge by 5%. Not really that necessary, but we don't have any other good cloaks so early, ever since the nerf to the Fawn Valencia's cloak. And for boots, the Skirmisher boots to constantly generate movement points when needed, so you have an easy time hitting all enemies with your burst or flamer or sniper attacks. Speaking about weapons, once again, the sniper rifle long laser is still the ultimate weapon for Act 1, it just is, I'm sorry. For burst weapons, however, stay away from Argenta's starter Unfading Valor, because it is really bad. It has way too much recoil, which means chances are you'll be missing most burst attacks. If you still wanna use bolters on the first chapter, well, you have the normal bolter, which has way less recoil, or the modified bolter for more damage and more rate of fire, with less recoil as well. If you're fine with using laser weapons, my preferred pick is actually the Retobi pattern laser gun, because it's plenty of dodge reduction, which helps a lot during Act 1 on Unfair, with a nice enough rate of fire, barely any recoil, and loads of ammo capacity, so you won't have to spam reload, which is quite costly for burst weapons. For our flamer, you might as well go with the normal flamer, which you can easily get by buying it from the Thunder Fang merchant faction, even at the very start of Act 1 before going anywhere. Now let's cover second act options, and this is when burst weapons get really good. Starting of course with the Heavy Bolter. It has decent damage, amazing rate of fire, and of course great ammo capacity. You can buy it from the Drusian's faction even early in the game. You can however also combine it with the calibrated Heavy Stubber from the Casbalica mission faction. It has much lower damage, but much higher rate of fire. Double that even of the normal bolter, because mine is enhanced by the soldier's heroic action. Both have the same strength requirements, so just pick whatever you prefer. Besides that, don't forget the amazing recoil gloves, the perfect companion for any burst builds to highly reduce the recoil of burst, for more chances of hitting all the enemies inside. For cloaks, I just have the Chameleon cloak. For more dodge, Argenta can be quite tanky, by virtue of high agility. I also have the Portative Manipulator accessory, so reloading costs 1 AP less, but it's not really that necessary for her, as the heavy burst weapons have pretty high ammo capacity. I can't see you using all that in battle, unless things are going really bad. Don't forget, for a talisman, the Invigorating Resolve from the Explorators faction is absolutely busted. The more momentum you generate with your Argenta, which is amazing for damage and killing enemies, the more temporary hit points all allies including herself will receive, and this can go to absurd amounts, even higher than 100, to make all of your party members quite tanky, despite not having any defenses. Oh, and don't forget, Argenta does have the ability to use medikits, but chances are outside of the very early parts of the game you won't really need to heal characters with her. Now let's cover Act 3 and 4, Gear. For armor, the biggest upgrade comes at Act 4, which is when you can finally pick Argenta's Special Power Armor. It has of course nice armor deflection and percentage, and after using a heroic act, of which you can easily spam, you'll immediately cast War Hymn for free with no cooldown, which of course means even more momentum. The plus 15 strength it provides is also great, so you can qualify for some of the stronger, heavier weapons without a lot of strength investment. It does tank your dodge by a bit, but honestly at this point in the game it doesn't matter. If you're not destroying everything with Argenta in one round, you're doing something wrong. Paw Rings, don't forget the white signet of the Inquisition gain at the end of the second act, for even more momentum generation. For gloves, we want the Stabilizer Bracers, for extra critical hit damage and more ballistic skill. Because at Act 4 you can find the Tempest's Carapace Elite Backpack, which fully negates the recoil of all of your burst weapons, with a massive increased 2-2 hit chance as well. This way you won't need the recoil gloves anymore, which is why we went with the bracers. The boots don't matter that much, I just have the Blitz boots here because they can increase your damage every now and then, so long as the enemies aren't so close to one another. Great for sniping with your heroic action. For weapons, Act 4 is when you can find pretty much the best Heavy Bolter, the improved Heavy Bolter, one of the ultimate faction rewards from the Fellowship of the Void faction. It has nice enough base damage and armor penetration, but sadly its unique property of increasing your rate of fire by +1 for each kill, I do think it's bugged at the moment and not doing anything. Kinda disappointing because otherwise you could achieve absolutely busted rate of fire, but honestly even with the 6 it starts with, or 12 with rapid fire, because of how high your damage can be at this point, it's more than enough to easily destroy anything. I just have a flamer on the side, in this case the Toxic Flamer because it fits her as a Sister of Battle, but of course you can always keep to the calibrated Heavy Stubber for even higher rate of fire. Amusingly enough, the improved Heavy Bolter has even higher strength requirements. And well, this was pretty much it for our Argenta Burst Goddess Sister of Battle build. If you found this guide useful as always, please remember to like, subscribe and also consider becoming a channel member if you can. I truly appreciate your support, friends. Thank you for watching and see you next time.